if you're a board member, I'll have you to mute yourself until it's time so we can cut down on the extra noise. But at this time, we'll call our meeting to order. If I can have Secretary call a roll, please.
Sure. Mr. Carter,
Here.
Mr. Robleski,
Here.
Mrs. Peasky, Martin here, Mrs. Williams, Mr. Brooks, and Mrs. Washington.
Here. Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, if we could stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I guess I kind of did that out of order. Had you just noticed that? But that's okay. We still got it done. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items? The approval of the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda items, approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Robleski. Is there a second or support?
I'll support it.
By Ms. Martin. All in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carried. We have our first community item, our public comment. So this is a time where even virtually, we provide an opportunity for the community to send comments. So we'll pause here, and if there's any one that's watching right now that would like to send the comments, we'll be able to retrieve those. Okay, I see that there are no comments. This is the only community item on the agenda for this evening. So I'll give a couple more seconds just in case.
Mrs. Peasky has arrived.
Okay. All right, if not, we'll move on to discussion items, and I'll have Mr. Heitmeyer to lead us through the discussion items.
All right, everybody, good evening once again. The Neola updates 34.1 and 34.2. 34.1, the different areas that it touches on are staff evaluation, GASB accounting principles, selling real property, mandated reporters, staff ethics, and allowing drones, small unmanned aircraft, and the tobacco updates that are specific to 34.1 get into laws regarding tobacco. 34.2 deals with curriculum development, homebound instruction, attendance, school calendar, specifically allowing professional learning hours to count toward instruction. Most of those relate to the pupil accounting manual, authorization on electronic signatures, and school safety. Now, the elementary handbook and secondary handbook, Mr. Cornwell or Mr. Mangum, do you want to give a brief overview of changes to the handbooks?
I can give you a couple of heads up on the high school, middle school version. We have 2 additions to the handbook at the secondary. Both of those relate to COVID, and one is about dual enrollment and the other is early graduation. And that was language that came from West Shore and how they're handling enrollment for our high school students. we had 3 things in the handbook that we're actually going to be removing. One of them is there's a section on athletics because we're moved it into the athletic handbook so it stands alone. The second is the pages after pages after pages of PBIS matrix.
Mhm.
We actually took that out of the handbook so we could put a separate handbook together specific to PBIS. Part of that is we're still working on some thoughts and ideas about online learning and remote learning as it deals with PBIS. And we just don't have all of that sorted, all those minor details sorted out yet. It's probably 98% there, but it wasn't ready for tonight. And then the final thing that I'm asking that we're going to take out of the handbook is our section on RTC. There's a brief section in there about the responsible thinking classroom. And right now we have our schedule built so our students are cohorted. And if we send a student to RTC and they come back to class, they actually break that cohort. And we now have to follow all of the procedures for re-cleaning the classroom every time a kid would go to RTC and come back. So we're going to try something different this year, not using RTC and just handling discipline without it. But I want to make sure that that was brought up and taken out of that handbook so that we didn't put ourselves in a corner that we didn't want to deal with cohorting students.
Thank you. Mr. Mangum?
Yeah, the handbook that you received from the elementary is very, very minimal changes, mainly to staffing and dates. Primarily everything else stayed the same from last year.
The athletic handbook, we actually are taking out that 20-player add another coach rule. We talked about doing that when we made some decisions at the board table previously. It doesn't really fit in the athletic handbook, so that's going to come out of there. We'll still continue to do that, and did some renumbering in there on rules and expectations, and it really allows like academic eligibility to stand on its own with some sub points, but no content just change, just some renumbering. And if you don't mind, I'm going to try to share my screen.
Okay.
No, that's not it. All right, so is the slideshow up there now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I will I'll go through this and answer any questions. Hopefully it all makes sense, but the overall focus on this committee that we began way back in June was really a way to determine how to have high quality instruction and learning continue. I want to say thank you to everybody who took part. A lot of people gave a lot of time, a lot of thought, and we put together what I think is a solid package of plans. And all the while keeping in mind the idea of preparing students for the promise of tomorrow. So what story are we living in right now? Because it does seem to change quite a bit. But last week, the New York Times ran a story that said, based on current infection rates, more than 80% of Americans live in a county where at least one infected person would be expected to show up to a school of 500 students and staff in the first week if school started today. Around the same day in the Detroit News, Governor Whitmer was quoted as saying, "This fight is not over. During the month of July, we saw an increase in positive cases in every region of the state." This graphic goes with the piece from New York Times showing how many infected people might arrive the first week of school. This is kind of reversed from earlier in the year, where the dark colors probably would have been more in the Midwest and the upper East Coast, but this is where we are right now. So then a school reopened in Indiana, and from what I read in the article, by noon they believed they had a couple of positive cases. By the end of the day, they were shut down temporarily as they tried to determine what they would do. Where are we in Michigan? So as of about a week ago, this is a snapshot of where the COVID cases are in Michigan, what the fatality rate is. Currently looks like it's about 7.4%. So if we flash back just a few months, I remember watching the news one night and watching when the total COVID cases got over 50,000 and our deaths associated with it was almost at 5,000. And I'm like, wow, it's a 10% rate. That's much different than what we're seeing across the country. So we've got that improved, but still not a good mortality rate. So on June 30th, we found out what our mission was as we prepared for school, and we had to do 3 different scenarios. One for if you're in phase 5. That's basically northern Michigan and the UP. One for if you're in phase 4, which requires lots of safety protocols, lots of social distancing, masks, and all of those kind of things. And then one, if you're still in phases 1 through 3, what would remote learning look like? So on our team we put together, we had representatives from the board, the administrative team, and the teaching staff. We had representation from Axiom, Chartwells, Family Healthcare, True North, the West Shore ESD, and Yates Dial-A-Ride. And we had several meetings in June, July, and even into August. We put a draft of our preparedness plan out for review on July 29th or 24th. So we had that up there. It's actually still up there, and we allowed for comments. We did the survey and asked for feedback on that, and also feedback on what parents would prefer, whether they wanted in person or remote. So we were tasked with gathering a lot of information, reviewing our information from the spring. I don't know if you've been watching the quotes that I've been including from the comments that came from the survey, but this one here from a parent really captured things in my mind. I'm afraid for my child to return to school due to COVID-19. I know she can get a better education attending school rather than at home. We do not connect like she and a teacher would when trying to teach. She does wear her mask, but I would not feel comfortable with her having to wear it all day long. That really captured all of the comments. I thought maybe we would hear comments about, if you're requiring masks, we're not going to school, my kids aren't going to school, and things like that. And that's not really what the feedback was. The feedback was supportive, was concerned. There was definitely some fear in there. By the time we were done, 72.4% of our families prefer remote learning, and 27.6% prefer face-to-face. Now, to break that down a little bit more, 61% of the remote responses were high school, 39% were elementary, and 42 face-to-face were secondary, and 58 of face-to-face were elementary. So we had right around 200 students represented in that information. So what is our current reality? The parent survey was distributed by Robotext, Facebook, the district website, word of mouth. More than 70% of our families preferred remote learning. We also see that the COVID data has continued to spread, and it seems that every time situations where kids are brought together, there seems to be a spread of the virus. We've got a case in Manton where a camp may have contributed to 52 cases. Gladwin was like 62, and then there was a huge one down in Georgia, and that was without doing a ton of research. So where we are. We're going to ask the board to approve the plan this evening, but at the same time, we have to consider that we value the safety and well-being of our students, staff, and families. So at this time, we are recommending a remote learning option to begin the school year because we think that that will provide a safe and consistent learning environment with hopefully fewer interruptions to learning. If we were to start live and then the governor orders that we have to go remote, there's an interruption. So, we want to put kids in a situation where they can be successful learning. And we believe that right now the remote option is probably best and safest. So a timeline would look something like this. On the 19th and 20th, we would hand out Chromebooks, flash drives to get people started with packets and get back to school forms and packets into people's hands. We would start remotely on August 24th, still have a parent orientation on the 26th, and every week we would evaluate, how effective is this model? What's the COVID-19 data telling us? But by October 23rd, we would determine, would we continue this beyond the first 9 weeks, or would we be able to go face to face? And we truly believe that over the course of the 2.5 months, we would be able to learn more about where we are. We still will be able to do school food like we were able to do beginning last spring with breakfast, lunch, and supper available on Mondays and Thursdays for the week and weekend. So that's where we are, and willing to try to answer questions or provide clarifications. And I'm trying to end my show and stop presenting.
Is there any questions or comments from the information that Mr. Heitmeyer just presented about the plan and the proposed action for remote learning to start the beginning of 2020-21 school year? No thoughts about that? The people still on the phone, are you still able to hear us well, Mr. Robleski and Mr. Carter?
Yes, I hear you well. I have no questions.
Mr. Carter, you have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. My concern is people who can't get internet service. And right now the internet service and phone service is not working very well. But I have all kinds of trouble with my internet service and phone service right now. And then there's some people who just, they live with some parents that don't know how to use internet service. So what do we do with those people?
Right now, we are working with Casair. They are the company that brought fiber into our county last year. We are working with them to get some hot spots put at some different spots throughout our community. And we are also going to set up our school building as a hotspot. We're figuring out how to get Chromebooks into kids' hands, and long term, we're hoping we can be able to find a way to get internet into everybody's homes. But right now, we want to be able to build some hotspots where people can come to and download information, upload information, and those kind of things. We know it's not perfect, but we're really trying hard to improve that connectivity. That's one area that we know not only in our county but throughout the state that has to improve. I mean, that's one thing that's really shown since March, that there is a big disparity in our state with connectivity availability. But thank you for the question.
Okay, I have a question. Who's going to get the Chromebooks? And are these the new Chromebooks that we just purchased?
The new Chromebooks are on back order till the end of September. These are some of our older Chromebooks. These are not going to be giveaways, though. These are going to be signed out, unlike the ones we gave away last spring that no longer were operational for testing and stuff like that. But students who did not receive a Chromebook previously will have the first right to receive one.
But okay, let me ask again a different way, maybe. The students that have the older Chromebooks that we gave away, are they still going to be able to use those for the school year, this school year coming up? Are they still going to be able to use them?
Those Chromebooks are usable. The only thing they're not usable for is like taking the NWEA and the MSTEP testing.
Okay.
That's the reason that they were able to be given away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Those are, excuse me, those are good questions. Okay. Well, if there aren't any, are there any questions about Neola policy before we go to action items? Neola 34.1 and 34.2. This is our second read, but it is on for action items. So, are there any questions about that or the handbooks, elementary, secondary, or athletics before we move on to action items? If there aren't any, then I'll say it's safe that we can move on to action items. So, first action item would be a motion to approve Neola policy 34.1 and 34.2 with all of the corrections that were in them.
I make a motion that we approve Neola 34-1 and 34-2 with the added corrections.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned by Mr. Robleski and it's been seconded by Mrs. Williams to approve Neola policies 34.1 and 34.2. Ms. Martin, can we do a roll call vote, please? First, are there any questions to the motion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Robleski,
Aye.
Mrs. Peasky, Martin, aye. Mr. Brooks is absent. Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Peasky,
She must be unable to hear us right now.
her mic is muted too. She might not have been here. Okay. I can see her, but
You're muted, Mrs. Peasky. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
I just got reconnected.
We're voting on Neola 34-1 and 34-2. If you can do a thumbs up, we
I'm not muted.
is that a yay? Is that a yes or no? Okay, we'll have to move on. We'll move on. And that's a yes for me, Mrs. Martin. You can record a yes. All right. So with that, I'm going to say motion is carried. So that is approved. Action item for the elementary handbook, secondary handbook, and athletic handbook. Is there a motion to approve these 3 handbooks with the corrections and the additions that was added as presented?
I make a move we approve the handbooks as presented with the corrections.
I'll support it.
Thank you. It's been motioned by Mr. Carter and supported by Ms. Martin that we approve the 3 handbooks with the deletions and additions and changes for the 2021 school year. Any questions or comments to the motion? We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Robleski,
Aye.
Mrs. Peasky, Martin, aye. Mrs. Williams,
Aye. Oh, yeah. Aye.
And an aye for me, Ms. Martin.
I'm sorry, and Mrs. Washington, sorry.
No, that's okay.
And I was also waiting for Mrs. Peasky too, but maybe she's gone again.
Yeah, I don't see her on.
Okay.
So we'll have the motion carried. Thank you. All right, so the next motion is a 2-part. So it's a prepare. We need to do we need to adopt this preparedness plan? You're muted.
We just have to approve the plan.
Approve it. All right. So there's a motion. Do you want 2 separate motions? One to approve the plan and then one for remote learning, or together? Should we do it together or separate?
I would say together.
Okay. So, and if there's any questions, we can to the motion and we'll address it then. So what we'll do, we'll have a motion to approve the preparedness plan for the 2021 school year and to start the school year with a remote learning option. Is there a motion? The motion is to approve the preparedness plan that was presented with that slideshow for 2020-21 school year and to start the school year with remote learning. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the prepared plan for 2020-21 school year and to start the remote learning for this 2020-21 school year.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams.
Support.
So it's been motioned by Mrs. Williams and supported by Mr. Robleski. Are there any questions or comments to the motion? Madam Secretary, can we please have a roll call vote?
Sure. Mr. Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Robleski,
Aye.
Mrs. Peasky,
Aye.
Martin, aye. Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
and Mrs. Washington.
Aye.
I think we
Motion
actually have
carried.
another board member that joined, just so you know.
Oh,
Is that
It
Mr.
looks
Brooks?
like by phone.
Mr. Brooks, is that you?
That was Mrs. Peasky.
Oh, is it Mrs. PC?
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, nope, that's okay. So motion carried. Thank you all. That was good work. Superintendent items?
I don't necessarily have any items. Just know that appreciate the support to make this happen, and know that the next few weeks are probably going to be crazy for education. Just I'm sure we'll be updating you regularly with information that starts to come out. The Senate is meeting Saturday morning at 10 o'clock to apparently vote on some back to school language. So things may start to get fast and furious now that we're getting close to the start of the year. So thank you for supporting that, everybody.
Any board member items?
Thank you, Mr. Heitmeyer. This is Jeff. I was just going to say, thank you to Mr. Heitmeyer and all those that were involved with all this planning. That was a lot of work involved.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Any other board member items? Well, I just want to thank my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and the colleagues that I worked on the task force team. It was extremely difficult to plan for the educational future of our entire district, the safety of our kids, the safety of our staff, and the safety of all of our vendors and everybody who works with our students. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Heitmeyer, both building principals, the entire district that's come together. Once again, I believe that we are true leaders in our area, and that we are definitely doing what's right. And we can stand on knowing that we looked at data and we made a smart decision this evening to not just protect our families and our students, but also our staff and their families. So I just want to say thank you to you all for your work, and once again, like Mr. Heitmeyer said, your continued support. So if there isn't anything more, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at 5:30 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, it's been motioned by Mrs. Williams. Is there a second?
Support.
Rock, paper, scissors. Carter or Robleski? Rock, paper, scissors. I'm gonna pick Carter. All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 No opposed? No. Motion carry. And thank you to our virtual audience as well for your support behind the screen. We appreciate you too. So meeting's adjourned at 5:30.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you. We'll see you all soon.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.